Welcome back to the Alchemical Life podcast. This is a podcast that redefines transformation to help athletes prevent injury, improve performance, and achieve more in both sport and life. I can't seem to get myself comfortable getting set up here today. I don't like the way that I look. We press on anyways. Hold on. Do a little shakety. Hair flip action. Bump the microphone. Whoever's listening to just audio, God bless you. I am really in a place where I'm confused because if you're watching the video, there's a little light and I don't like that light. And I need to turn my sound off. And I don't like that light showing. But if I cover it with my head, then it messes up my reels later and I'm off center. So we're just going to have to figure it out. Go as we go. I might have to deal with the light. Anyways, hey everybody, if this is your first episode, introduction to the Alchemical Life podcast, I both apologize and welcome you here. Today, we are doing a Q&A. We just finished a series on recovery, and so I thought, screw it, let's do a fun episode. You guys can ask all the questions you want, and hopefully I can answer them and help you guys out with the questions that you have. So I have quite a few questions that have come in, and we're just going to start taking it down the line, and I'm going to see how many I can get through. And then if you are like, oh my God, I wanted to ask a question and I didn't get my question answered, then feel free to drop a question in the comments. Or also, I think I have chocolate on my lip because I just ate a pastry. Feel free to drop a question in the comments below, or you can DM me on Instagram, abigail.crow, or you can DM my business Instagram, Alchemical Training, and ask me a question there, and I'll make sure that you either get answered right away or get answered on the next Q&A that I do. So we're going to get right into it without further ado. Subscribe to the podcast, like this video, comment, all of those things. It helps me. It helps me. I don't exactly know like what I get eventually if it other than just it helps me help more people, really, ultimately. So, let's get started. Let's get right into it. The first question is, and I've got to tell my mom to shut up. Hold on. Mom! Hold on. Go away, I'm trying to podcast.
Sweet baby Jesus.
What is my life? You guys heard that. Anyways, let's get into the Q&A. So the first question is, does your body feel more tired from jujitsu, running, or lifting? Well, really, the bones of it is, it depends on what I put more of my energy into. If I'm in the middle of a strength block, my body's tired from lifting. If I'm in the middle of training for something like I'm training for now, a 10K, my body's really tired from running. And if I'm putting a lot of effort into learning and expanding my skill set in jiu-jitsu, then my body's going to be most tired from jiu-jitsu. But I would say overall, all things considered, jiu-jitsu probably is what makes my body feel the most like crap. I'll feel really fatigued from lifting and I'll feel sore from lifting, but there's nothing like a hard sparring session to just both make and simultaneously ruin your day. It is tough. And so I would say overall, my body probably feels the most tired from jiu-jitsu because also, I don't know what it is. My neck is like the weakest, the weakest. I got such a weak ass neck and it will be so achy and sore after a training session. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't even matter if nobody chokes me out. Everyone's grabbing my head. But, like, it doesn't matter if I have good posture. It's just, like, it's going to be sore. It's just going to be sore. So, sucks. But the next question is, what is on your workout playlist right now? Honestly, most of my training sessions, I'm listening to podcasts. So Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan. Sometimes I listen to Mind Pump just because I like hearing the guys shoot the shit. I don't listen to Q&A. The RXT Radio, shout out RXT Radio, love those guys. I will listen to a lot of podcasts, but if I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm listening to stuff like, I wonder if I can play this and not get in trouble. I might get copyrighted, but listen to rap. Oh, wait. I'm also listening to, sometimes I listen to country while I work out. It's very rare, but sometimes I do. I won't play that for the people who are just absolutely, completely averse to country music. I do listen to a little bit of the like grungy type of music, so I'll listen to some Sleep Token. Oh, this isn't, well. If you know Sleep Token, you get it. I don't even need to go anywhere. I'll listen to hardcore. And I'll listen to like and you're the beggar. I don't know. I listen to everything. So those are probably some of the songs that are on my workout playlist currently. I might have just completely humiliated myself, but whatever, it's what I listen to. So that is some of the stuff on my. Let me know if you guys want a workout, like an alchemical workout playlist, and I'll put one together, and I'll share it to Instagram and to. I wonder if I can share it to the YouTube. But anyways, yeah, I'll put together a workout playlist for you guys to listen to. If you guys like jamming out to the same stuff I like jamming out to. The next question, I'm going a little bit more casual to potentially a little bit more in depth in terms of Q&A questions. Which the next question is your training schedule the same week to week? I don't know if you mean workout training or client training, and the answer is no to both. So usually in some capacity, I'm following a program of sorts. And there's some form of progression that I'm trying to go through, whether it's to build endurance or to increase speed or to increase strength or to, work on some skill set in jiu-jitsu. There's something that I'm working on. So there is a level of progression, and that's going to require a certain level of monotony and sameness in my training session. It's also going to require a little bit of novelty in my training. So and that novelty is usually in the form of going a little bit harder or a little bit faster or adding a little bit more volume in some capacity. So there are going to be positions or in certain exercises where I'm moving into positions to make the exercise a little bit more challenging. My loading mechanics are shifting a little bit, or my weight and my reps are a little bit different. Sometimes my sets are a little bit different also week to week. But overall, I'm keeping the intent of the program similar week to week, and then off of that I have some sort of progression that I'm shooting for, that I'm trying to follow as I move through my program, so that I can get to a peak of some sort, and then I can chill out a little bit, and then I can go back into the program. And I will admit that there are times in which I just get purely bored, or I get really curious and I get really excited about a new training concept, and so I'll throw things into my training, or I'll throw things at the end of my training session, or when I'm supposed to be having a rest day, I'll like work on plyos or something. But that's not necessarily like the optimal thing to do. It's just the thing that I tend to do. So whatever, it's what I enjoy. As far as my actual personal training, my training changes all the time, week to week. I do have a couple clients that come in same time, every week on the same days as well. But and I do have clients that come in at similar times, but for the most part, my training does change week to week. It's not the same. So I just sort of see what's going on, and then I fit my training in whenever, like my personal training in, whenever I have time to get my training in. And I'm very lucky that I have a job that allows me to train with clients and also to have plenty of time to work out. So the next question is, it kind of goes with the previous question, which is how to change workouts when you feel like you can't increase the weight anymore. Well, so there is a concept that the prescript team talks about a lot, which is that it's not necessarily progressive overload that's the only way to make progress, or even the king of making progress, but actually progressive overstimulus. So this means that you don't always have to just increase weight. Sometimes you can make things you can still make progress in what you're doing. And also, it depends on what your goal is and the intent of the training block and what you're trying to accomplish. But you can still make progress by increasing the stimulus, which means sometimes you are adding volume. Sometimes you are increasing stimulus by creating a different tempo scheme, creating a longer eccentric, making the set a little bit higher volume in and of itself. So shifting a straight set to a drop set or a cluster set, something like that. There are a lot of ways in which you can use the concept of progressive overstimulus in your training to phase out your training properly and drive intent and also progress in the direction that we want. But I'd have to get a little bit more specific as to what exactly the goal of your training is and where you seem to be faltering in your training. Because progressive overstimulus is a reasonably broad topic in that there's a lot of ways that we can add stimulus to our training. And sometimes the stimulus is keeping the intent the same, changing the movement so that the loading mechanism is a little bit different. And so sometimes it is novelty actually with similar intent to allow for you to make progress. But let me know. I know who asked this question, so let me know. You can hit me up in the DMs if what's actually going on, and I'll see if I can help answer your question a little bit more efficiently. The next question is, oh, these are so good. They're kind of going in succession well. I didn't prep for this. But the next question is how do you determine training block phase timing? So for your training block, how do you determine the time of your training block? Normally, you want to give somebody at least 4 weeks, because the first week or two, there are some things that people are still figuring out. You're moving into new positions. You might be a little bit sore. The overall volume isn't going to demand as much from you because it is new. So you do want to be able to have some time to acquire a little bit more volume and also push the intensity a little bit on the training block. So I would say minimum of 4 weeks before moving into maybe a deload and then actually going back into that training block. Those are going to be for more advanced athletes who really understand position and are loading extremely heavy and do play a little close to they fly a little close to the sun when it comes to overall intensity and stimulus. But most people, I would say, would do really well with a 6 to 8 week training block before taking any kind of deload. And with that 6 to 8 week training block, you could be keeping the movements pretty similar, especially your main lifts. Let's say you have a squat or a deadlift as one of your main lifts. You could keep that the same for all 8 weeks, maybe shift a little bit in terms of intensity or volume, and then depending on what you're wanting out of your training block. And then from there, you have your other lifts. You could have a couple of other main lifts. It depends on if you do, a push-pull legs or an upper-lower split or a full body split. But let's say you have, deadlift and then you have bench press, those are your two main lifts. And then you have something like a single arm cable chest press and a single leg RDL and a cable crunch. Those things you might be able to maneuver throughout the 6 to 8 weeks a little bit in terms of I'm going to move after 4 weeks from a contralaterally loaded single leg RDL to an ipsilaterally loaded single leg RDL. And then, I'm going to start with a cable crunch, and then I'm going to go to a B-stance cable crunch, or I'm going to start with a cable crunch, then go to a hanging knee tuck. It just depends on what you're trying to get out of the program, and also how experienced you are with program shifts and changes. Most people do really well to just stick to the same thing 6 to 8 weeks and really work on driving intent into their training program, putting sufficient volume and intensity into the training program, and not doing too much, making sure that form and technique is on point. And for those who are pretty good with programming and like to experiment with programming, you can always shift exercises as long as you're still driving intent for the training session as a whole. And if you are really advanced, then you might do well adding in a little bit of a deload in between your training, in the middle of your training block, so that you have some time to back up off before pushing again and getting into a real peak in your training. So it depends on the experience of the lifter ultimately, but normally for most people, I would say 6 to 8 weeks is a pretty solid training block time. And some of my clients, I will push for 10 to 12 weeks in a training block, and I'll keep those main lifts in, and then I might shift a little bit of the accessory lifts around so that I'm still driving intent to the movements that are in the accessory lifts later in the training session, but there's a little bit of novelty still added in, and people don't get totally bored. And then the next question, oh my gosh, how do you know when it's time to get an athlete to a new block of training? Yeah, so when we've reached the intent that we want out of the training block, sometimes it's just when a client gets really freaking bored. If a client's goals have shifted, or if the event that we have been training for is now complete, those are all reasons to start a new training block. But ultimately, it's whatever their goal was. If we got the intent that we wanted out of the training block, or we achieved the goal that we were trying to achieve out of the training block, that is a great sign that the training block is ready to come to an end, and we can start a new training block. That is the best thing. Did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish? Did we drive intent, get the intent out of the training session we wanted to? We did. Hell yeah, success, win, victory. Let's move on to a new training block. Let's set another goal, and let's go from there. So that is that. I'm trying to think if I can. I'm on a roll with the order of questions. And how many types of training blocks are there? Primary purpose / focus of each. I don't love this question, mostly because I don't really know how to answer this question. How many types of training blocks are there? The training blocks that I take my clients through most of the time are usually athletic populations, and so they'll have a strength block. There might be a training block more focused on power. There might be a training block focused on strength power, or maybe more power speed. So there's a certain emphasis on the force velocity curve that we're working at. There might be a training block where we're really focused on improving stability or return to sport. There's oftentimes, I'll take my clients through a training block where it's sport specific. We're getting a little bit closer to the event of whatever we're trying to train for. So this is what you'd call like a preseason training block. For athletes, you have an off-season training block, a preseason training block, an in-season training block. I'm trying to think of what else. You'll have sometimes just a recovery training block, a hypertrophy training block if my clients have gotten a lot of stimulus in terms of strength training, and I just want to load them up on some externally stabilized machines and still be able to drive overall load and intensity, and be able to keep volume up, or maybe even increase volume without totally just wrecking the body. I might have them do a hypertrophy focused training block. Yeah. And the focus of each really depends on what the focus is. Are we focusing on power, speed? Are we preseason? Are we postseason? Are we in season? Are we injured? Are we coming back from something? Are we working toward a goal that's like a year out from now? Are we working toward a goal that's 8 weeks from now? Are we sprinting? Are we doing a high rocks event? Are we, all of those things, so many different things can be what help determine the primary focus of the training block. So kind of a broad answer, but you gave me broad questions, so whatever. The next question is, in jiu-jitsu, would you rather be stronger or more conditioned than your opponent? That is a good fucking question. Ooh. I've always been the stronger one, so my natural inclination is to say I'd rather be the more conditioned one. But also I think it depends on weight class. On the the heavier weight classes, I think that being the more conditioned one could be really beneficial because both parties are probably pretty damn strong. And so being able to be the one that has a little bit more conditioning whenever you guys are really just squashing each other and going at it and getting tired, the person who has a little bit more gas in the tank tends to do better. I would say be more conditioned because if I can, especially in a tournament setting, the anxiety's high, the adrenaline is up, the adrenaline's high, and I'm pretty strong, but if I can be at a lower heart rate than my opponent, I'm usually doing better. I'm thinking more clearly, and I can take the strength that I have and I can use it so much more efficiently because I'm more conditioned. I'm not gassed. I'm not making stupid mistakes. I'm not falling all over the place. I'm not unable to get out of positions purely because I can't breathe. I think that being more conditioned, now that I've looked at this, I think being more conditioned is definitely the thing that I would rather have against my opponent because if my heart rate's at like 135 and theirs is at 165 or 155, unless I'm just totally shit, I'm probably doing better than them in this match. So I can stay calm for longer. I would say that being more conditioned is better. Yeah. The next question, and I'm hoping that I'm not missing any questions. But one of the next questions I got is about event anxiety, how to get the F over it. This is a personal question. I don't even know if I can necessarily help people with it. I can speak on it like as a coach, but as a person, I totally understand this. I get event anxiety like crazy. And I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is you're going to have it, and exposure therapy is really crucial. So a few things. One is if you have anxiety over it, it probably means you really care about it. And that's something you should be proud of. You care about the event that you're competing in. And so in some ways, that's really respectable. The events that I didn't care about are the events I wasn't anxious for. And in some ways, it was just totally not gratifying winning those events because I didn't care. So, it's cool to win, but when I've trained really hard for something that I really care for, even though I have a lot more anxiety, because I do get performance anxiety pretty bad going into the event, it's just so much more rewarding in the long run at the end of it all, even if I've lost, just because I cared a lot about it and I know that I put a lot of time and effort and energy into preparing for it. But another thing is exposure therapy and confidence through preparation. So making sure that you are actually preparing for the event well. I found that my clients or myself, like if I was really anxious for something or my clients are really anxious for something, it's usually because they either feel or they truly are not prepared for the event or whatever it is that they're anxious for. And in some ways, by increasing the perception of preparedness, it's by actually doing the event. So if it's a high rocks event, going through the events, working really hard, making sure that your running is improving, actually having testable metrics to monitor and look and observe at, where you have made progress rather than just guessing and thinking, oh, I hope I'm more conditioned, actually seeing, okay, I ran my 0.62 miles, I ran my 1,000 meters and it was this time. And at the end of my training block, I'm running my 1,000 meters and it's this time. And, I'm going through my events and these are the time breakdowns for my splits. And realistically, this is the goal that I can set for the event. You can go into the event a little bit more prepared and with a greater degree of confidence because you have prepared for it and you have testable real metrics that you can look at and see this is probably what we're looking at in terms of success or failure in the event that we're competing in. And that will increase the perception of preparedness as well. So not only will you actually be more prepared, but you're going to perceive yourself to be more prepared. You'll be more confident going into the event and you're not going to be quite as anxious. I think a lot of people, if they're prepping for an event, they don't really they might not track anything or record data or figure out where they're really making improvements. So they're not figuring out what their potential split is. If it's a sprint event, a lifting event, whatever, if you're not tracking numbers and you're not tracking data, you don't know. Personally, I do compete in jiu-jitsu. I have competed in jiu-jitsu, and that is quite anxious, quite anxious, anxiety evoking, because you can prepare quite a bit, but you really don't know what your opponent is going to do. And for other sports in which you are playing against people, it can be really challenging because you don't know what your opponents are going to do. And so the best thing that you can do is prepare yourself physically, make sure that you're still tracking data, looking at your conditioning, looking at your time on the mats, looking at certain skill sets that maybe you feel like you are really good at, that you're now seeing improvements in. You're looking at skill sets that you might suck at, that you're working on improving, and you're looking at the metrics of progress and seeing how much you've improved. Hey, this person I was sparring with last week, 2 months ago, I wasn't able to get anything on them, and now, I'm able to get that armbar that I used to suck at getting, and I'm landing it on them. I used to suck at this judo sweep, and now every single time that I spar, I'm landing it on all of my white belts in the gym, or I'm landing it on a couple of blue belts in the gym. Whatever it is, it's important to take into consideration the things that might make you anxious and work on those things before going into the event. That was a really long-winded answer, but that's probably the best advice I can give in terms of event anxiety and how to get over it. Also, exposure therapy, man, just go do it. You have to do it, and it might not necessarily ease the anxiety entirely, but you're going to get more comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's really important. And I think that there's something going on in the background, but we're just going to keep on pressing on. So sorry, you guys. We're going to keep on pressing on. The next thing is running and mindset. If you're not a runner, how to understand the mechanics of the right running form. I am not a running coach, so I can't answer that question because I'm not a running coach. But running and mindset, if you're not a runner, stop saying you're not a runner. Shift your mindset. Seriously, I haven't been a runner in the past. I haven't necessarily been somebody that has been really good at running in the past, but I could be a runner and I could be really good at running. You don't need to lie to yourself and be like, I'm a runner. I'm awesome. I'm a lifter. I'm a CrossFit athlete. You don't need to go into the mirror and lie to yourself, because you're not going to believe yourself. But to be able to say, I have never done CrossFit, but I could be a really good CrossFit athlete. Or, fuck CrossFit. Sorry, I actually have a client who does CrossFit. I love you. But yeah, I'm not, for me, okay, even personally, actually, I could say this. I am not somebody who's necessarily, I'm not somebody who's historically been very good at sprinting or really, really fast in distances under 400 meters. But it's something that I would like to get good at. And I think that with a lot of practice and time and patience and effort, I could be a pretty fast runner. I could be a pretty fast sprinter. This 10K that I'm training for, I have never truly run longer than, I'm not a 6 mile race kind of girl, I've hiked through the mountains half a marathon. That's different. That was horrible in its own way. And, but actually training and prepping for this 10K race that I'm going to do, it's not something that I necessarily identify as, but through time, it's like I am a runner. I'm running. I run 4 times a week, and I'm doing it in a way, I'm programming it, and I'm strategically phasing out my training so that I'm building endurance and speed at the same time, and I'm making progress. So I think that mindset is that's up to you to change, and you have to be able to open your mind to the idea of changing your mind. Finding your balance between being healthy and living a sustainable life. Where to give grace and where to push yourself. This is one that is really hard to talk about and nail in, because everybody's lifestyle is really different. Ultimately, from my personal experience and also working with a lot of clients, this is the biggest issue. The life, being healthy and living a sustainable life. I think a sustainable life, like something that you can do long term. I think the sustainable life is one that isn't sustainable and people wish it was. I think ultimately with food, that's what happens, is people want to have their cake and eat it too, and they want to live in a way in which the fun life and the flexible life is also the sustainable and healthy life. And that's not necessarily the case. And there's going to be trial and error, but with sustainability, there's still discipline. Like, you still have to say no to things, you still have to say yes to things, and you still have to be able to show up for yourself and really ask yourself the question, is this something that is going to help me get to my goal? Is this something that's going to nourish my body? Is this something that's going to, make me feel good the next day or later today in my training session? And this is both nutritionally and with training, but I found this to be more difficult with people nutritionally. And often, actually, poor nutrition choices tend to really influence training more. So not only the actual performance in training session, but motivation to train and perception around training. And I've experienced this personally as well. And the biggest thing is understanding that to be healthy, you have to have discipline. And so there's going to be a point in which you ask yourself, is the life that's fun right now, the life that's actually healthy, something that I will be happy with, 5 years down the road? And is this sustainable in the sense that, is this something that I want to sustain long term? Is this something that when I look into the future, this leads me to the person that I want to be? And if the answer is no, then you really do need to shift gears. And so, general advice is, prioritize protein, eat whole foods, stay away from highly processed foods, stay away from processed foods in general, and drink a lot of water, eat vegetables. I mean, get good sleep, have good relationships with people, call your family, give them a hug and a kiss. Those are really the things that promote a long-term, a healthier lifestyle and seem to be fairly sustainable, which is just like the basic things that are really simple, that are actually that can be really hard to add into your life, are the things that help you the most. And the big rocks are going to be eat sufficient protein, drink a lot of water, get good sleep, have good relationships with people, and understated, but I think also underrated, is do something that fulfills you and spend the majority of your time giving to others. And I think that when you can focus less on you and you focus more on other people, that you'll get a little bit less, you'll be less in your head about doing the fun, selfish things for the now, and you'll be thinking more about the future, and you'll be thinking more about others, because you'll be adopting this generative drive, which is this drive toward the greater good and the good of the whole and not just you. And you'll also start making nutrition, lifestyle choices that are going to be not for you right now. They're going to be for others later. And you'll show up better for other people when you eat healthy and you sleep and you care about people and you talk to people. So I think that is my advice on that. So it's also a long answer, but that's my advice. I think there are a couple of other questions. Overcommitment. So having multiple goals. Yeah, there are so many exciting things to do, and I can relate to this as well. But it's important that you have a focus, because you'll end up feeling really unsatisfied with your lack of progress in everything, rather than picking, a few things to focus on and then going from there. So my advice would be, have your year calendar and have a few things that you really want to do, and phase out your training accordingly. So, maybe the first quarter of your year, you're focused on building strength and you want to do a powerlifting competition. And then you want to, after your powerlifting competition, you want to go on a little bit of a cut and you want to look really good for your vacation, for the summer, for the second half of the second quarter of your year. And you go into a little bit more of a hypertrophy block, and you go into a calorie deficit, and then you go on a cut. And then maybe you want to, after that, be like, oh, well, I'm lighter and I feel good and I really wanted to work on my endurance. And so you train for a long run, like a long run race. And then you're like, you know what, I'm tired of running and this is driving me crazy. So let me add in something a little bit cooler and more fun. And I might do like a high rocks, and I'll do some jujitsu, whatever. But those are ways in which you can take your year and still accomplish quite a few things in your year, but phase out your year more intelligently, so that you are not setting yourself up for failure, and instead setting yourself up for experiences and success and good times. Often, I will say, if you're really, really committed to something, like you want to just be like the fucking best at it, you kind of just got to focus on that one thing. But most of the people are just, they want to live healthy and feel good and experience cool stuff. And so that's a great way to set up your training. I don't know. I think that these are questions. I don't know if these are more questions. Oh, this person was just talking about ways in which they overcommitted. I think I answered all of the questions. What time are we at? We're at 35 minutes. Okay, perfect. That's a perfect time to cut this off. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. And if you have any questions, again, leave me a DM in my Instagram. So to my Instagram, abigail.crow or alchemical training, or you can leave a comment down below. But I love Q&As. Those were fun. That was really fun. Subscribe, please, and like this video and leave a comment. Let me know what kind of topics you want me to discuss in the future. I have a lot of topics that I have written out to talk about, but there are so many areas of potential conversation I could go into and discuss. And so if you guys have particular topics you want me to cover in the future, let me know so that I really give you all the material that you guys want to hear about or see. All right. Until next time, until next week, I'm logging off. Thank you for listening to the Alchemical Life podcast, and I will talk to you motherfuckers next week. Bye.